When people ask me what I do, I say that I have the best job in the city of Greensboro. I love being Greensboro's mayor. It is my honor to serve the city of Greensboro. You know, most people think that we are called Greensboro because we're so green, that we have beautiful tree canopies, that we have wonderful parks and gardens. But actually, we are called Greensboro because of Nathaniel Greene. Nathaniel Greene was General George Washington's major general in the Revolutionary War. He served at the Battle of Guilford Courthouse, which was a pivotal battle in the Revolutionary War, which really changed the direction of that war. You know, if he had lost that war, there's a good chance we might be driving on the left-hand side of the road right now. So that is why we are called Greensboro, because of Nathaniel Greene. But you know, we have a nickname, and it is called the Gate City, and I want to talk about how we got that nickname. We got that nickname because of former Governor John Motley Moorhead. When John Motley Moorhead finished his governorship in Raleigh, he moved here to Greensboro, and he built the beautiful Blandwood Mansion, which is right around the corner from us. And you know, legend has it that his daughter is still in residence, that every now and then you can go by late at night and you see her in one of the windows waiting for her husband to return from the Civil War. He came to Greensboro to start the North Carolina Railroad. That was in the 1850s. And he raised about $2 million. That's a lot of money in today's dollars, but imagine how much money it was in 1858. He started the railroad, and about that time, there were 60 trains that went in and out of the city of Greensboro. You really couldn't get anywhere without coming through the city of Greensboro. The Civil War was on the horizon, and he did not want to succeed. He did not want to secede. He wanted to stay neutral. You know, the city of Greensboro was founded on Quaker beliefs, and we have a deep Quaker history here. And Guilford College was founded on Quaker beliefs, deep spirituality, that we should give back to society. And he really advocated for us to stay neutral. I want to fast forward a little bit to current day. As Tara said, I moved here in 1989, right about the time I got here. The city of Greensboro and the state of North Carolina was talking about where they were going to put the urban loop. And one of the paths they were thinking about was going to come through the woods of Guilford College. So I jumped into that discussion like I jump into a lot of discussions. And I learned about the Underground Railroad, how it came through Guilford College. And I was talking to a neighbor of mine and learning about the Underground Railroad. Of course, I heard about it as a child. I learned about Harriet Tubman. I learned about the wagons that the slaves went in, that they packed themselves in with hay all around them, and that they would come through the woods in complete quietness as they escaped to the north. I didn't realize that I could literally walk out my back steps and into those sacred woods. So my neighbor mentioned the name Levi Coffin, and I thought he was a historian. So I should talk to this gentleman. And I went home and I pulled out my phone book, because we had phone books then. And I went through the white pages to try to find Levi Coffin. And most of you will know he was not in the phone book. And so I went back to my neighbor and I said, how can I find this Levi Coffin? And he said, well, you know, he was the president of the Underground Railroad. Then I remembered, oh, that's the marker over on Friendly Avenue. He was the president of the Underground Railroad. Luckily, the state and the city of Greensboro had more sense than going through that sacred ground, and they took another route. So back to Governor Moorhead. He ran for the House in 1858 and 1861, and he lost the battle not to secede, but he did serve in the Confederate Congress, And Greensboro, for a brief time, was the capital of the Confederacy and the capital of North Carolina for 11 days. And it was at Landwood Mansion, right around the corner. And we signed the declaration of where we turned over to the Union at Landwood Mansion. But you know, Greensboro was in a unique position. After the Civil War, we were relatively unscathed. The railroad, because it was such an important supply line, was basically left okay. And at that point, the mill industry was beginning to come. The Cohn brothers came down and they started the mill villages. They created huge mills, hospitals, schools, entire communities. Other companies came down, like Vicks, U.S. Steel, Terracotta Pomona, and we started humming right along. We became really the wonder of the South, and it was because of the railroad. Jefferson Standard brought their company here to the city of Greensboro. And in 1923, Julian Price, who didn't believe in carrying debt, paid $9.9 million in cash for the Jefferson Standard building. It is still one of the most iconic buildings in the city of Greensboro. It's changed a bit. It's a beautiful building, and it still dots our skyline. Even during the Depression, the city of Greensboro prospered. Real estate was booming. We invested in our education. We were the city that could. We have 5 colleges and universities. We are home to 2 HBCUs, Bennett College for Women, North Carolina A&T State University. We have UNCG, which was originally founded for a college for women. We have Guilford College, which I talked about, Greensboro College, and we also have Guilford Technical University. In February 1960, 4 brave young men from North Carolina A&T went to the Woolworth's counter after shopping. They sat down and they ordered a cup of coffee and asked to be served, and they weren't. And they sat there very patiently. They came back the next day, and they came back the next day, and they were joined by many others from A&T, the Bennett Bells, others from UNCG, and that movement took fire across the landscape of the South. And by and large, that movement is credited for passing the 1964 Civil Rights Act. That was one of the most important movements in our civil rights history. However, in 1979, the city of Greensboro was embroiled in another issue, and it is called the Greensboro Massacre. It is an issue that still divides our city today. It was a death to the Klan march. 5 people were killed. 11 people were injured, and it is still an issue that divides us. You know, in the 2000s, our fortunes began to change. In the 2000s, the Triad, our community, lost more jobs than any other area in the entire state. We lost 90,000 jobs. That was more net jobs than the entire state. I mean, let that sink in for a minute. Our mills began to close. Like many communities throughout our country, many of the jobs began to move offshore. They went to Mexico, they went other places. Many of our people who were employed long-term lost employment. And we were really faced with, what can we do? How can we reinvent ourselves? We have great bones. We are a great city. And luckily, we had great leaders who didn't give up on the city of Greensboro. We talked about the colleges that are here. One nice thing about our colleges and universities is that they work together. They don't work against each other. And right down the street on Gate City Boulevard, it goes back to the Gate City. We re-embraced our name. We have North Carolina A&T and UNCG working together on the Joint School of Nanotechnology and Nanoengineering. I didn't know what a nano was, so I looked it up in the dictionary. Again, one of those quick education things. Do you know that there are 100,000 nanometers in the side of a piece of paper? So that's all I know about nanos. Luckily, the people who work there know a whole lot more than I do, and they are doing great things. This is the future. They are setting a course for the future of Greensboro with this high-tech engineering. On that same campus, a second building is being built for a former student at A&T with the help of the City of Greensboro and UNCG for high injection molding technology for the automobile industry. Further down Gate City Boulevard, UNCG, A&T, GTCC, Moses Cone, they built Union Square campus for medical technology. It's a fascinating building. We know that medical technology pays living wages. It puts people to work. We've got 10,000 people in our community who make high-paying wages in the medical industry. We have a simulation lab, which is fascinating. This is one of my favorite buildings in the city. I used to call them test dummies. I've corrected, they're mannequins. They blink, they breathe, they bleed, but if you touch them, they flinch. These are really high tech. They have pregnant mannequins that give birth to baby mannequins. You know, it is so great that doctors and nurses get to practice on mannequins as opposed to, like real people in case they make mistakes. And not only that, there is a virtual cadaver. We are one of only 200 in the entire world. How fascinating is that? How wonderful is that? HondaJet out at the airport, the first jet to have the engine above the wings. If you buy a HondaJet, you have to come to Greensboro. Anywhere in the country, if you want to learn about a HondaJet, you've got to dial 336 on your phone. It is amazing. The school system is working with HAECO out at the airport to train students how to work in aviation. The airport employs 5,300 employees that make on an average of $65,000 a year. This is a new industry that we have to focus on. Just last month, a company in Europe said that they were buying HondaJets for a taxi service. Now, it's not a taxi that I can afford, but there are people in Europe who can afford little jet services, and they are buying from the city, well, not from the city of Greensboro, but they are buying HondaJets made in the city of Greensboro. The airport is a new hub of activity. Mills that were once blighted in our community are now a destination. They are home of high-end housing and affordable housing. Home to craft breweries, artisans. There's manufacturing going on in those mills again. Great pizzerias, places to eat. Not only that, they've become a destination where you can go outside and watch movies during the week. One of the mills that just shuttered is being redesigned again. Things that once went out of business, we are now repurposing. It is just wonderful to see these buildings now being put to reuse. It is a great way to recycle. And downtown, it has become a real hub of activity. When I first moved here, there could have been tumbleweeds coming down the street. It is now home to 23,000 employees. We've got great anchor tenants like the Lincoln Financial Business, who first bought that building for $9.9, and now they're putting $33 million in it to upgrade. Home to many employees. It is a cultural hub of cultural arts, great museums. We've been able to preserve that Woolworths Museum for generations to come. It is for small business, for large business, for medium-sized business. We have invested in IT. We've got CoLab working space. You know, one thing that we've learned, if I can give you a takeaway, is that we learned that we can't put all our eggs in one basket anymore. Yes, we still want that automobile manufacturer. We still want that warehouse distribution center. But we know that we have to go after the small business, the medium-sized business, as well as the big business. We have to go after those quality of life things like the Performing Arts Center, like great parks and recreations. So all those college kids, they're going to take that great knowledge that they learn in our universities and they keep it right here in this city and they help us grow. So that's our takeaway, that we continue to reinvest in ourselves because the city of Greensboro, we are a great place and we got hit hard, but nobody is keeping us down. Thank you.